In the smoke and fire of the Second World War, empires clashed, and history was written in blood and steel. From the frozen fields of the Eastern Front to the silent depths of the Atlantic, this is the story of Germany at war, told through the eyes of those who lived it. No politics, no glorification, only history, raw, human, and unfiltered. This is German at war, where the past comes alive, one battle at a time. Darkness, endless and absolute, the ocean stretches like an iron tomb, swallowing sound, light, and life itself. Beneath those cold, crushing waves, steel predators prowl, German U-boats, the Unterseeboote, the silent hunters of the deep. It is 1939. The world trembles on the brink of total war, and deep in the ports of Kiel and Wilhelmshaven, sleek gray submarines slide into the water, carrying crews who know they may never return. The sea has no mercy, and neither does war. Engines growl like beasts awakening from slumber. Diesel fumes hang thick in the damp morning air as sailors, young and pale, tighten their life vests and wave farewell to the women and children on the docks. Some smile, hiding fear behind bravado. Others stare silently at the horizon, knowing that beyond it lies the vast Atlantic and death. The captain's voice cuts through the noise. "Cast off!" Lines are released, and the U-boat glides from the pier, slipping into the gray waters like a ghost. Germany knows that it cannot match Britain ship for ship. The Royal Navy rules the surface, but beneath, the Reich plans to strangle Britain from the shadows. The U-boat's mission, to sever the lifelines that feed the island, the convoys bringing oil, food, and weapons from America and the colonies. Each ship sunk means starvation, fear, and pressure on Churchill's Britain. It's a war of tonnage, fought not in daylight but in darkness. By 1940, the Battle of the Atlantic begins. Convoys escorted by destroyers creep through the North Atlantic under constant threat. The U-boats operate in Wolfpacks, coordinated by radio from the Befehlshaber der Unterseeboote headquarters, led by Admiral Karl Donitz. Donitz, a former submarine officer from the Great War, believes that a small number of disciplined, stealthy submarines can bring mighty Britain to its knees. He calls it Rudel Taktik, Wolfpack tactics. It is ruthless, efficient, and deadly. Inside a U-boat, life is misery. The air is foul, heavy with sweat and diesel. The temperature climbs unbearably, condensation dripping from the steel walls. Space is so cramped that sailors sleep above torpedoes, between pipes, or wherever they can fit. The stench of oil, unwashed bodies, and food rot fills the narrow passageways. Rats scurry over boots. The men go weeks without sunlight, their faces pale, eyes hollow. Every creak of the hull reminds them that outside lies a crushing pressure that could turn their steel sanctuary into a watery coffin in seconds. Then comes the first contact. Hydrophones pick up faint propeller noises, distant, rhythmic. A convoy. Orders are whispered. The engines slow. Silence falls. Only the sound of breathing remains. The U-boat rises, periscope breaking through the surface. The captain's eye presses to the lens. Gray ocean, scattered ships, destroyers zigzagging. He spots a fat freighter, slow, unescorted for a moment. The attack begins. "Laws!" the torpedo tube hisses. A white trail cuts through the Black Sea. Seconds stretch like eternity, then impact. A thunderous roar. Flames erupt, men scream, and the ocean swallows another ship whole. The crew cheers, briefly, because now the hunt turns against them. The destroyers react instantly, racing toward the origin of the attack. Sonar pings echo through the water, haunting and metallic. "They've found us," whispers a sailor. The captain orders a dive. "Alarm! Dive! Dive!" Red lights flash, men scramble, hatches slam shut. The U-boat descends fast, deeper and deeper, the hull groaning under pressure. Depth charges explode above, shaking the vessel violently. Lights flicker, gauges tremble. Men grip their seats as explosions rip the water around them. It feels like the ocean itself is tearing them apart. Minutes turn to hours. The U-boat lies silent on the seabed, motionless, waiting. Every creak could give them away. Sweat drips, hearts pound. Somewhere above, the enemy listens. A single ping, then another. The tension is unbearable. And then, at last, silence. The destroyers move on, fooled into thinking the U-boat destroyed. Slowly, cautiously, they rise. The men exhale, exhausted but alive. In the deep, survival feels like victory. By night, they surface to recharge batteries and breathe fresh air. The ocean is calm, the stars bright, the horizon endless. The men stand on deck, smoking, silent. Around them, only the sound of waves and the low hum of the diesel engines. For a brief moment, they are free men again. Then the captain looks through his binoculars and spots the faint shadow of another ship, another target. The hunt begins anew. The U-boat war has only just begun. The Atlantic will soon become a graveyard for thousands, ships, sailors, and submarines alike. But for now, in 1940, the hunters rule the sea. The men of the U-boats, trapped between glory and oblivion, believe they can turn the tide of war. They do not yet know that the sea never forgets, and it never forgives. The Atlantic, 1941. The sea belongs to the hunters. Across the dark expanse, the gray wolves of Germany stalk their prey beneath storm-swept waves. It is the time the U-boat crews call Die glückliche Zeit, the happy time, a cruel irony, for their happiness is measured in fire and wreckage, in tonnage and terror. The ocean is their battlefield, their grave, their home. Night after night, convoys vanish into the black abyss. Merchant ships burn in the distance, their masts collapsing into boiling oil. Sailors scream for help as flames engulf the sea. The U-boats move unseen, striking like phantoms, then slipping away into the cold. Radios crackle across the depths as Admiral Donitz directs his Wolfpacks from the headquarters in Lorient. The strategy is working. Britain is bleeding. By the end of 1941, over 1,000 Allied ships have been sent to the bottom. Supplies dwindle. London counts every ton of lost cargo like a heartbeat fading in the dark. In the cramped quarters of U-48, one of the most successful submarines in the Kriegsmarine, men whisper about their luck. Each patrol brings new victories, tankers sunk, destroyers evaded, medals awarded. Yet even in triumph, fear never sleeps. The Atlantic is vast, but it has no mercy. When the engines stop, silence presses against the ears like a weight. Men dream of the surface, of air, of warmth, of sunlight. But they know the surface means exposure, and exposure means death. The only constant is the low hum of machinery, the drip of condensation, and the ticking of the clock that counts down to the next attack. The happy time is not happiness at all. It is tension wound tight as steel. The men live minute to minute between calm and chaos. The navigator traces maps on a narrow table lit by a single red bulb. The captain stands at the periscope, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. Somewhere above, the convoy passes, black silhouettes against gray clouds, guarded by destroyers that hunt like hounds. The torpedo tubes are loaded, depth set. Orders come in whispers. Loss. The torpedoes hiss away into the dark. Seconds later, explosions split the ocean. A ship breaks apart, swallowed by fire. The men cheer, pounding each other on the back. But even in victory, their smiles fade quickly. Every success means new vengeance. The enemy learns, adapts, strikes back harder. Above them, the war expands. The United States, once neutral, now joins the fight after December 1941. The oceans grow more dangerous. Allied radar, sonar, and long-range aircraft begin to close the noose. But for a time still, the German submarines dominate the western approaches. They strike off Newfoundland, in the Caribbean, even off the American coast, so close that city lights shimmer on the horizon. Civilians on the beaches of New Jersey and Florida watch in disbelief as ships burn just miles offshore. Oil slicks drift ashore. Bodies wash up with life vests bearing German markings. The war has reached the doorstep of the new world. For the crews, the victories mean promotion, medals, and a sense of invincibility. Young captains become national heroes: Prien, Kretschmer, Schepke, names that echo in Nazi propaganda. Posters call them the Knights of the Deep. But beneath the surface, these knights live in silence and sweat. They are pale, starved, sleepless. They survive on bread, canned meat, and hope. Many are barely 20 years old. When they write letters home, they speak of courage and duty, not of fear, not of the screams that echo through the hull after a depth charge, not of the nightmares that haunt their brief sleep. The Atlantic storms grow fiercer as winter deepens. In the U-boats, condensation turns to frost. Machinery groans under the cold. The sea is alive with fury, tossing the steel tubes like toys. Men vomit, praying for calm. Yet, even in the storm, they must attack. A periscope rises from the churning gray water streaming down its lens. The captain steadies it with trembling hands, finds his mark through the chaos. Fire! The torpedo fires, vanishing into the abyss. Moments later, a flash on the horizon. Another freighter gone, but the enemy changes. British codebreakers at Bletchley Park are listening, decoding messages sent through the once impenetrable Enigma machine. Allied convoys begin to zigzag more effectively. Air patrols stretch farther. The hunters are being hunted. Still, Donitz pushes forward. He believes that with enough submarines, 300, maybe 400, he can force Britain to surrender. He calls it the decisive phase of the Atlantic War. In Berlin, the High Command praises the U-boatmen as heroes of the Reich. In reality, their struggle is invisible, unseen by most. Beneath the waves, they live and die in secret, their victories measured in brief radio signals before silence consumes them again. For every ship they sink, another U-boat fails to report back. Mothers wait by the mailbox for letters that will never come. The Kriegsmarine lists them as vermissed, missing in action. The sea keeps their secrets. By mid-1942, the happy time begins to fade. The Allies grow stronger, faster, more coordinated. The Wolfpack still prowl, but the ocean has turned against them. The balance is shifting, slowly but inevitably. Above the waves, new eyes watch from the sky. Radar blips, searchlights pierce the dark, and soon, nowhere will be safe for the hunters of the deep. The tide of the U-boat war is about to turn, and when it does, the ocean will no longer whisper victory, only silence. The year is 1943. The Atlantic has changed. What was once a dark kingdom ruled by German hunters is now a killing ground that devours its own. The wolfpacks that once prowled freely beneath the waves are now the prey, hunted by new eyes in the sky and new ears beneath the surface. The U-boat war, once Germany's pride, begins to drown in its own silence. It starts quietly. The men aboard U-553 are returning from patrol when a blip appears on their sonar, faint, distant. They ignore it, thinking it's just another echo of the sea. Minutes later, the first explosion hits, depth charges, the lights flicker, the hull shrieks under pressure. Panic ripples through the crew, more explosions, closer, heavier. The sea itself seems to shatter. Inside the submarine, pipes burst, gauges spin wildly. Men shout prayers into the darkness. The captain orders, "Dive deeper!" But the deeper they go, the greater the pressure becomes. Steel bends, bolts snap, water bursts through the seams. One more explosion, then silence. The U-boat and its 50 men vanish into the deep, their final grave unmarked, their story unfinished. By 1943, the Allies have turned the tide with technology. The Enigma code, once unbreakable, has been cracked by British cryptanalysts at Bletchley Park. Each radio message sent from Admiral Donitz's headquarters, every movement, every formation, is now a whisper heard by the enemy. The hunters are walking into traps. Convoys no longer sail blindly. They travel under the constant protection of radar-equipped destroyers, long-range patrol bombers, and escort carriers whose planes circle the skies like vultures. The night, once the U-boat's greatest ally, betrays them. Allied aircraft now carry radar, detecting submarines even in total darkness. The moment a periscope breaks the surface, the sky erupts in light. Searchlights sweep across the water, and engines roar overhead. The scream of diving bombers cuts through the night, and explosions churn the sea. Crews scramble to dive, but it's too late. Depth charges rain down like thunder, and the water turns red. Inside a U-boat, the fear is constant. The once routine rhythm of life, loading torpedoes, plotting intercepts, surfacing at night to recharge batteries, now feels suicidal. Every surfacing risks detection. Every transmission invites death. Men grow pale and hollow-eyed. The stench of oil and sweat hangs thick. Food runs low. Air becomes poison. They live on tension and silence. When the hull creaks, every man listens, wondering if the next groan will be their last. Admiral Donitz, now commander-in-chief of the Kriegsmarine, watches in disbelief as his fleet vanishes. In March 1943 alone, 41 U-boats are lost, more than one per day. His Wolfpacks are dying faster than they can be replaced. Still, he orders more patrols, hoping to find a weakness in the Allied defense. He believes in the endurance of his men, their courage, their devotion. But the numbers tell another story. The Atlantic has turned against them. In the control room of U-615, the crew huddles around a flickering light. The hydrophone operator reports aircraft overhead. The captain whispers an order. "Hold course." Silent running. The men freeze. Not a word, not a breath. The engines slow to a whisper. They listen. Then, the faint echo of propellers, closing fast. Bombs drop. The first explosion rattles the hull. The second tears through the stern. Alarms blare, red lights flash. Water floods in, hissing like steam. Men scramble, shouting over the roar. The captain gives his final command. "Surface! Abandon ship!" The U-boat breaks the surface, flames bursting from its tower. The men leap into the Black Sea as Allied planes circle overhead, their machine guns tracing light into the night sky. One by one, the men disappear beneath the waves. The ocean takes them, quick, cold, silent. By summer, the U-boat arm is broken. The once proud force that terrorized the Atlantic now bleeds away in shattered steel and lost souls. Donitz orders a withdrawal. The Wolfpacks are called home to regroup, rearm, and adapt. New models, the Type 21, are being developed, faster and deadlier than anything before. But they will come too late. The Allies now dominate every horizon, every depth, every whisper of the sea. The tide that once carried Germany's submarines to glory now buries them in ruin. Yet still they go out, young men, barely trained, desperate to serve. They know the odds. 1 in 4 will return. But they board anyway, faces pale, eyes fixed on the horizon. For them, it's duty. For many, it's destiny. In the harbors of Lorient, Saint-Nazaire, and La Rochelle, the massive concrete pens that once echoed with the roar of engines now stand silent. Bombed from above, cracked and scorched, they shelter ghosts. The laughter, the songs, the hope, all gone. Only the sound of dripping water remains, echoing through the empty docks. The ocean that once promised victory now keeps only death. And yet, even as the war turns against them, the U-boats continue to sail. They are not driven by orders anymore, but by something deeper, a need to prove that they still matter, that their brothers beneath the waves did not die for nothing. The Battle of the Atlantic is nearing its end, but for those still out there, beneath the crushing weight of the sea, the war is far from over. The hunters have become the hunted. and soon there will be no one left to hunt at all. The winter of 1944 drapes the Atlantic in silence. The war is turning toward its brutal conclusion, and beneath the waves, what remains of the U-boat fleet sails toward oblivion. The harbors of Lorient and Brest are ruins, their concrete pens shattered by Allied bombs. The once proud Wolfpacks are reduced to scattered fragments, hunted, broken, desperate. Germany's silent hunters have become shadows, moving through waters ruled by their enemies. Yet still, they dive. Above the sea, Allied control is absolute. Escort carriers and patrol bombers sweep the ocean day and night. Sonar pings echo constantly, the mechanical heartbeat of a fleet that no longer sleeps. Radar, depth charges, and new homing torpedoes make every square mile of the Atlantic a trap. The U-boats are now the hunted remnants of a dying war machine. Their crews, worn to ghosts, know the truth. They are sailing to die. In the cold of February, U-978 departs from Bergen under a sky heavy with snow. The men are silent as the engines rumble to life. The captain, barely 26, looks out across the gray sea. He knows this patrol may be his last. Inside, the crew moves mechanically. Torpedoes checked, depth gauges calibrated, rations counted. They've done it all before, too many times. Yet this time, there's no illusion of victory. They fight not for conquest, but for survival. The sea outside is black and infinite. When they dive, the light fades to green, then to darkness. The air inside turns foul, damp, and heavy. The men sleep beside the torpedoes, breathing in oil and fear. Above, Allied destroyers scour the waves, their sonar sweeping methodically, relentlessly. Every sound, a cough, a dropped wrench, a creak of metal, could mean death. The U-boat hides beneath thermoclines, waiting, listening. Each hour feels like eternity. One night the engines fall silent. The hydrophone operator listens. A convoy, distant but real. The captain hesitates. Attacking means suicide, but he decides to strike anyway. "Prepare tubes 1 and 2, he whispers. The torpedoes launch with a hiss, slicing through the blackness. Moments later, explosions rumble through the deep. Hits confirmed. But there's no triumph. The destroyers turn instantly, converging. Sonar pings fill the water. The captain orders, "Silent running." The crew barely breathes. Then, the first depth charge. The explosion rocks the hull. The lights flicker and die. Another follows closer. Metal screams. The U-boat is shaken like a toy. Tools and bodies slam against the walls. Water bursts from the seams. The sea is collapsing in on them. The captain orders to dive deeper, but the gauges tremble, the pressure unbearable. At 250 meters, the hull groans, a deep bending wail that silences the crew. They know what's coming. The next charge hits dead center. The lights vanish. The hull folds in, and the sea rushes in like a monster. In seconds, all is still. Above, the destroyers circle once, then move on. Another shadow erased. Across the Atlantic, the story repeats. Every patrol is a suicide mission. In 1944 alone, more than 250 U-boats are lost. Donitz watches helplessly from his command post, his dream of victory now a nightmare of statistics. The Enigma is useless. The Wolfpacks are gone. Allied convoys now sail almost untouched, while German submarines vanish in silence. Yet still, the young volunteers come. Boys of 16 and 17, trained in haste, sent out in new models. The sleek Type 21 and 23 submarines, technological marvels that come too late. They are faster, quieter, capable of staying submerged for days. But by the time they reach the front, the war is already over. Germany is collapsing, its cities burning, its armies retreating on all fronts. The sea, once a weapon, is now a grave. In May 1945, the message arrives. Operation Regenbogen, Rainbow. The order from Donitz is clear. Scuttle the boats, sink them all, deny them to the enemy. Across Europe, U-boat crews open their seacocks, flooding their vessels at anchor. The gray wolves of the Atlantic sink one last time, not in battle, but in surrender. In harbors from Norway to France, steel hulls slide beneath the waves, bubbles rising in the sunlight. The men watch silently as their ships disappear, the sea reclaiming its own. Some cry, others simply stare. When the war ends, only a handful of U-boats remain. Out of nearly 1,200 built, over 780 lie destroyed. More than 30,000 sailors lost beneath the waves, one of the highest mortality rates of any service in the war. Entire generations of young men vanished without a trace, buried in the cold silence of the Atlantic. No graves, no markers, only coordinates on a map and memories in the hearts of those who waited for their return. In the years that follow, the sea gives up few of its secrets. Fishermen still find twisted steel on their sonar screens or nets tangled with rusted debris. Sometimes a hatch, a periscope, or a torpedo casing drifts to the surface, relics of a forgotten war. The ocean remembers everything, but speaks of nothing. Today, divers who visit those wrecks describe a haunting stillness. Inside, the instruments remain frozen in time, dials fixed, papers scattered, cups still resting where hands once placed them. The sea preserved their final moment, untouched for decades. As light filters through the broken hulls, it feels as if the crew is still there, asleep, waiting for orders that will never come. The U-boat war was not a story of victory or defeat. It was a story of endurance, of men trapped between duty and death, faith and futility. They lived in darkness so the world above could burn in light. They fought an invisible war, and in doing so became invisible themselves. In the end, the Atlantic took them all, the hunters, the hunted, the brave, and the forgotten. The sea kept its silence, and beneath its endless waves, the ghosts of the U-boats still prowl, eternal and unseen, Germany's hunters of the deep.